From crits to crypto, former sharpshooters leveled up and evolved. With a master ball mindset and a megastone strategy, he planted a rare seed that bloomed into Glitter Cloud Solutions, a consultancy that's super effective against the stale GameFi. It's the king of the kill streak. It's Dub.
Damn, dude, it feels even better in person. Great to be here. If you guys are in Toronto, be sure to reach out to us. We'd love to meet up with you. We're just getting burgers and doing all sorts of things running around the city. And looking forward to London AVAC Summit next week too, man. It's a world tour.
If you're in Toronto, we want to meet up with you. We're getting burgers.
Down in Toronto.
Up next, from Victory Road to Virtual Vaults, this battle-tested trainer brought home 4 titles in the Fortnite League, earning his place amongst the real-world Elite Four. His training regimen is tougher than a Dragonite scales. Now he pivoted from power-ups to pixel profits, mastering NFT placement and Magic Eden like a Pokemart. He's got the badges, the brains, and the battle passes. This knock.
You know, it's weird being directly opposite Sam while he's giving these intros because he just feels like he's yelling at me. But super excited. We got a ton of good topics. Hopefully it gets a little spicy today.
I literally was yelling at you while Up next, a 30-year titan of the code, a world builder of mythic proportions. He's got the rare honor of working on a game inducted into the World Video Game Hall of Fame, forming the very fabric of play. He's a parallel pioneer, holding court in the top 30, and he's a master of mechanics and metagames. Recently, he stepped into the spotlight with Project O, dropping jaws and setting the stage for what's next. From Coin Games and Project O, it's Kevin Lambert.
Yo, what's up? I've been away for a couple of weeks, but I'm so happy to be back and cannot wait to jam with you fine folks.
It's great to have you, man. It was weird without you on the panel there for a little bit, so good to be back in the groove of things. Up next, building my angry Yakuza girlfriend. He's a behemoth of bold tastes and brazen taboos, a renaissance rebel that strikes fear into the peasants and gutless wanks amongst us. A towering titan in the Far East, looking to establish a gaming legacy beyond what we found in the Web3 West. It's the titan of taboo, the founder that can't be bought. It's Senjin.
Yo, I'm just barely awake, so fuck it, let's get this shit going.
To the surprise of no one, Sinjin holding on by a thread at 4 in the morning. Love you, brother. Thanks for hanging with us. Up next, this trainer has logged the first all-canine compendium, raising each one like a family with 300 unique wolves in his Pokedex. Having evolved far beyond the average with wolf in one hand and wolves down in the other, he's crafting a revolutionary set of products while rallying peerless pooches into perfectly synchronized strike teams. It's time to face the fur and meet the master. It's the curator of canines, the patron of pooches. Behind the Wolves Dow account today, we got Peyton. Okalanika Povani, we can live here.
Woof, woof. Let's get it.
Let's get it, big dog. Big woof to the big dog. Our next guest isn't just a player or a streamer. She's a paradigm pulverizing professional. She used to dominate the digital Fortnite, a fearsome fragger who flattened her foes, but she swapped her high score heroics for high stakes hustles in NFT marketplace wars of Web3. She's now a business building behemoth, lending her laudable leadership to 2 tech titans, Slingshot and Magic Eden. Welcome to the panel, the Voguish visionary, the vexing Valkyrie is Vo.
Wow, that really made up for Simplified.
Yeah, Monday was tough. Monday. We're not going to talk about Monday. We're just going to move on. Up next, Forged in the Fiery Furnaces of Smash tournaments, where he was dishing out more L's than a dyslexic librarian. This guest has leveled up, blasting his way into Web3 war zones like a bull in a china shop. If the china shop was made of fragile eagles and questionable tokenomics, this ox doesn't believe in beauty sleep because he's too busy stampeding over the competition. He's the overlord of opportunities, the Sultan of Smash from Avalanche. It's Wills.
Woohoo! Fresh intros. Almost making it bearable that I'm not in person with you guys. Almost, but we'll persevere. I'll be coping and seething for the next 2 hours. So looking forward to it.
We miss you, big dog. Wish you could be out here, but we will see you in London, I hope. And up next, this blockchain baron's been building bridges and breaking barriers in the blockchain world, fueling the fires of on-chain everything, notably Friendtech, Coinbase, and B3, leading the way in American crypto. He famously snagged Sanctuary, that much-anticipated extraction shooter from the paragons of Parallel. From NPC Labs, welcome to Oracle of the On-Chain. It's Daryl, Dealmaker, Zoo.
What's up, everyone? And I'm just glad to be back, honestly, so I can hear Sam's badass voice announce my fucking name again, like he's like Bruce Buffer on Fight Night or something.
Bruce is my personal hero. I love you for saying that. Next, plug your ears and prepare your brains to be buttered by sheer brilliance. When he steps into the arena, he's the audacious architect assembling audience adoration from the murky mythological depths of being dubbed the Golden Fraud. He has risen phoenix-like to become the glorious gleaming golden god right here on Gamified over the last 100 episodes. Welcome to the panel. It's Jerry, the Golden God Singer.
Hey, I always feel like there's like some veiled fat joke you're making. Like I don't know why I'm the one that has to butter people up. So also I apologize. I went on a run and I figured it'd be nice to walk back as the show was going on. And then like a torrential rainstorm just started. So yeah, I'm gonna have to run back home. So if I don't come back, I'm stuff.
You're fighting for your life at the end there. You'll know it's a veiled fat joke whenever I mention your waist size is 46 or something. Well, it won't be very well veiled, but we'll save that for another day. You're about to meet the pack rat Picasso, who's not just hoarding treasures; he's painting vivid pictures of the future with pixels and protocols. He's building sprawling empires in the magnificent metaverses of Parallel, Colony, and now the much anticipated Sanctuary. His projects are so mind-bendingly epic, they spawned a Black Mirror episode this season, all while looking cooler than a polar bear's toenails in his legendary drip. It's the Prime Minister of Parallel, the Canadian kingpin of the 51st state. It's Koji.
What's up, guys? Yeah, this is weird, man. I mean, and we've done some live gamifieds before, but to have us all just sitting around the same table, looking at each other while all this is happening, is like pretty bizarre. But I'm happy to be here.
And it's
Probably
your
weirder
table
than
too. It's like the super weird weird part. Up next, he's what happens when Charmander level Charm meets Dragonair tier Drip, weighing in its sleek 2.4 pounds. Clap your claws, salute the slinky serpent of the spotlight, the little is the legend. It's Lambs.
what is up, man? The FOMO is really kicking in now because I'm like, fuck, why did I not like book my flight 2 weeks later and hang out at Koji's table with you all? But this is the hand I'm dealt, so I'll just cry in FOMO from here. What's up, everyone?
Down bad. You could just sweep the floor of I don't know, avatars or something to make it up to all of us. We got to give a shout out to our amazing sponsors. Prepare to ascend to the peaks of innovation with Avalanche, the official blockchain and gamified with possibilities as high as the Himalayas. Avalanche allows you to own a digital Everest where your community plants its flag and your own token fuels the climb. So whether you're a seasoned Sherpa or a curious climber, come to explore an avalanche of opportunities. Plus, come find us in London. I'll be at the AVAX Summit along with many of your favorite folks. So be there or be left out in the cold. And up next, these aren't your run-of-the-mill developers. They're architects of growth, building a better landscape for Web3 gaming. It's Game 7, the official infrastructure of Gamified. Hyper plays your fast lane into Web3 gaming, make it into breeze to discover and dive into new games. Shout out to Game 7, the infrastructure innovators, making it all come together. And the hyper gates are open. You can discover now a Cosmos teaming with Discovery. Chart unexplored sectors of space-time, confront cosmic anomalies and pulse-pounding expeditions. Witness the evolution of photorealistic rendering that'll redefine your perception of the metaverse. To acquire a game key, embark on an interstellar journey. Plot a course for the Star Atlas Discord and join the fleet of the official game of Gamified. All right, guys, what's the word? Tekken 8 Season 2 patch was so bad that they literally fired every single balance dev that they had and replaced them with an entirely new team. Even the game director publicly apologized and vowed to fix Tekken 8. Apparently, Season 1 was really aggressive, that many moves led you to a forced like 50-50 guessing game and just made it not a fighting game anymore. Season 2 dropped it, but still had the forced 50-50 guessing scenario and even buffed already OP characters. They even went as far as changing inputs and identity of 30-year-old characters, and this resulted in players not even liking their favorite characters anymore. So what's the word for such a major fumble that they had to blast the entire team off the project? Dub and then Knock.
Sucks to be these guys. It's weird. Like these guys should just be a crypto game. It's like they're suffering through what it's like having a token and having live assets out there and still having to like continue on even though they failed. Like normally they would just wrap this thing up and move on, but because it's Tekken, they have to like actually keep working on it and stuff. So they might as well have a freaking token that they can profit off of in the process of all this, because they're just basically suffering through Web3 without the perks. So looking forward to the next Tekken being on chain and them running through the same gambit.
Dude, season 3, we're adding blockchain into it. I like it. All right, let's go over to Koji, then to Lems.
Hey, you skip knock. I mean, the word is shocking. I'm surprised that people still play these games. To be honest with you, no, I don't know. I mean, I think that like it's right there in the title, right? We're on the 8th release of a game that's like uh, very hard to iterate on. I mean, you can add new characters and a couple new move sets and stuff, but as far as like balancing fighting games, it's a very very delicate thing. And I think that like once you're at 8, I think you need to attempt to sometimes shake things up, and it could either go uh, horribly wrong, like it did in this case, or incredibly right. Like when Street Fighter introduced the parry, everyone was like, "This is the greatest thing to ever happen to fighting games ever, and we should do this from now on." And so I think like you got to take chances, and sometimes they work, and sometimes they don't, and that's just really what it is.
You're right. I did fade knock. We're just going to pretend it was intentional. Knock, over to you.
The word here is continuity. Don't worry, Koji. You know what's better than 8 versions of Tekken? It's 9. And that's what happened here, right? The team at Tekken, the original lead, has said that Tekken 9 will be the last version of this game for him. That'll happen around the next gen console release, which will probably be in the next couple of years. And what happened here was they took the team that delivered the game off the game and outsourced to some dev shop to continue pushing updates to the live service version of this product, and that resulted in a terrible season 2 launch. Continuity, man. These people built the fucking game. Give it to them. Let them continue to build the game. This is what happens when you try to get cheap and give somebody else the opportunity to run a game that they didn't create. This sort of shit happens all the time. I saw it with Evolution of Combat and RuneScape. I'll still never forgive them for doing that. And you're seeing it now with Tekken.
It's a great take. Absolutely brutal. Imagine making your baby and then handing it off to somebody who just, I don't know, throws it into a fire. Lems, over to you.
All right, before I give my word, though, I need to address Koji's point. Like, how many times have we talked on this panel about games like Call of Duty and FIFA, and they put a release out every year and they just tweak it a little bit? I know it's a different, like, it's fighting genre, but man, like, people really like a lot of the same shit if you keep just changing things and make it, like, a little bit prettier the next year and make it, like, oh, it's on the next-gen console. Yeah, my word is disconnect. Like, how fucking disconnected do you have to be from your players that you drop this, like, season 1, you get all this feedback from the players about the things that are wrong about it, and then you like say, okay, we're going to address those issues, and then do the exact same fucking thing on like the season 2. It's just like, that's pretty embarrassing. Like, these guys deserve to just get fired and be canned off it, and yeah, RIP.
God bless their hearts for trying. Kevin Lambert, you've managed some live service in your day. What's the word here?
The word here is accountability. Knock captured a lot of what I wanted to say about this. Like, you know, you can't scale your rock stars, and so they had a rock star team that delivered a game. Everybody loved it, and then in order to scale the business, they delegated and empowered another team to take the reins or pass the baby off, right? And I'm sure these people were not incompetent, right? They sourced them because they believe they had it in them. But what you do is you delegate and you empower people to scale your expertise, and then you have to hold them accountable if they for what they deliver, right? Hopefully you would catch that in testing and not oh wow, we didn't realize until we actually shipped it that it was so bad. That feels like a huge miss on the operational side. But nevertheless, it's just like, okay, the dev team that they hired, which were not the core developers of the game, they weren't the rock stars, just couldn't do as good of a job. You do see that all the time. In fact, I think there's someone in this very panel named Koji who had an experience similar to that with the dev team that they hired to work on the game for a while. They're like, we ended up bringing it back in house so that the experts could, do what we do best, which makes total sense to me. Sometimes, you hire a team to take over something, it does excellently. Other times they drop the ball. So, it's just accountability is the way I see it. surprising. It's just it went the bad way in this case.
Kevin, real quick, just to double click, I think this is a commonly held belief by consumers that don't have experience in the games industry, which is if they had just gone to the subreddit and like listened to the community about which character was OP, they never would have buffed the already OP guy. But is that accurate? Like, shouldn't they just be looking at data and being like, this has a 53% win rate? Everybody's complaining about it on the forums. Like, how hard is it to actually be like, yeah, we should nerf that by a little bit? Is it that convoluted?
I have to believe that they're doing the data analysis part of that, because that's what you commonly hear is like you have the vocal minority in the Reddits who are like, this guy's OP. And you're like, actually, the data shows that he's not, but we understand why you feel that way. Like, that's a very common, pattern in live service games. But what I think probably happened is that this team just didn't have quite the balancing chops. And so they either, you know, over indexed into what the minority was saying, or they didn't know how to interpret the feedback, or they just didn't have the chops to balance the game in the way that the initial version was. So I don't think any amount of data mattered in that case. It's just an expertise gap, probably.
Skill gap as usual. Jerry, going to you, then to Sinjin.
Yeah, I mean, I think the word is like whatever the opposite of what Koji said was, because like I think people just don't really want new shit, you know? Like we talk about it all the time where like people say they want new shit and then like you give it to them and then they don't like it, right? So it's like I don't know. Yeah, like I don't even fully disagree with Koji. Like I just think it's not the most surprising thing when you do get onto version 8 of something. Like people still just probably want fucking Tekken 1 all over again. I think with these like legacy games, it's pretty rare that like the parry example happens. I think more often than not, you get people who are like, "Oh, you ruined it. This sucks," right? And like, one thing that like the devs are gonna take the blame for this, or this like outsourced team is taking the blame for this patch. But like somebody greenlit this, like some EP somewhere said that this was good enough to ship, and like that's a major problem in the games industry, right? Like all the time we get stuff that's like half baked and incomplete, and people say like, fuck it, we need to make money off it, so just put it out there and then we'll fix it later. And like sometimes it works in your favor, but sometimes it blows up in your face. And I think that's just what's happening here. Like I'd rather see like the EP of the game get fired than like a dev shop take the blame for it. And then like last thing, and I'll try to make this point quick, is like balancing is so difficult. Like it's because you have to balance across different skill sets, right? So like one guy might dominate like the bronze tier or something, but in competitive ranked, are they any good? And like that person might work at the lowest ends, and so you have to kind of take all that data in aggregate and like do something with it, and that's not easy to do, right? I think it's like actually just as difficult as making the initial game concept in the first place, and like
Oh, I think Jerry fell off the.
oh no, am I back?
Oh, you're back. You're
Okay,
back.
Ice Frog is the best at balancing games. The Dota guy. Just look at him.
Yeah, God bless the ice frog, dude. Sinjin, over to you, then to knock.
Yeah, Ice Frog famously says in an interview when how do you balance the game and when you release, and he said, "Fuck no, I never balance the game. I let the community do that. That's fucking stupid." And just so to correct, sometimes the shit that you guys say, sometimes I don't know, you guys were not there, so you make up shit or read articles and say shit. What the funny thing here is that actually it seems like the reason why this team was let go and made public was because that actually that the management was lied to. So like they said that they came out like it's going to be defensive and it's going to be more balanced, and then the quote unquote the outsourced team, which may actually be an internal team that's actually quite good at what they do, they actually gaslit the management and said, yeah, it's going to be a defensive patch, and then they actually doubled down on the offensive shit, and that's why they got like let go or reshuffled or whatever like that. But if you read through the Reddits, actually it wasn't just an outsourced team. It may have been an internal team from another game that is well regarded, and basically the the management got lied to and they got gaslit, and then they went up public and said, yeah guys, don't worry, this will be balanced, and it wasn't. And that's kind of the reason why. I have no idea why the team would have done that. There's some theories that actually that those changes are in there, they were just not implemented properly. But anyways, these guys are the scapegoats, so that's politics as well.
Internal politics, my favorite game design strategy. Knock over to you then to Koji.
Yeah, to St. John's point, one of the weird things that struck me in like a couple articles and a couple of the Reddit threads that I was reading through in like prep for this topic was that they mentioned that Harada, who's the original creator of Tekken, may have not had the time to look at the patches like he has in the past because they're prepping for the Tekken 9 launch, which just like kind of surprised me. You have like the lead designer, the person who literally created the franchise, and they're not entirely aware of what is actually happening in the patch, and that sort of maybe potentially allowed for what Sinjin just sort of played out to happen, a world where he's sort of been gaslit with what the patch actually is versus isn't. It just feels like the focus for the franchise is now clearly on his last game, which is Tekken 9, which will come out in a couple of years, and it feels like things here on Tekken 8 may just be sliding a little bit because focus is on that final title.
Great take. Koji, over to you, then we move on.
Yeah, I'm gonna channel my inner dub here and be like, Jerry, you're so wrong. People do want new things. Like, just look at Sinners, look at Expedition 33. There's room for originality. I think that like people fall back to the same old shit because it's comfortable and there isn't enough good new things coming out. But I think that people are hungry for new, interesting things. And I know that's not
Yeah.
exactly the topic, but I just wanted to tell Jerry he was
No.
wrong.
Yeah. Thank you for going out of your way to do that. I think maybe I misconstrued what I was saying. I don't think people necessarily want new shit in like legacy IPs, which I'm considering Tekken one of. Like, there's always room for new stuff, but like I don't think people just kind of want core Tekken, right?
Right. I guess. I thought Koji would jump back in. All right, big deal, little deal, no deal. Sui is launching their own gaming-specific stablecoin. What does that mean? Okay, does gaming need its own stablecoin? Sui announced they're going to launch a gaming-specific one, which seems like somewhat of an app token, maybe semi-programmable stablecoin. Knock was informing me it's like based off of the value of a treasury, and that there's going to be some amount of APY unlocked by the amount of revenue that the treasury. I don't know. Honestly, I'm confused by this. Why would anybody want to use a gaming stablecoin, quote unquote, over USDC whenever USDC seems to be fine for all the same things? What could this potentially do? And is this a big deal, little deal, or no deal for gaming now that this exists? Koji, back to you, man.
Yeah, I'm not smart enough to understand why you would need a gaming stablecoin or what it even means to be a gaming stablecoin. But if paired with their gaming device, it brings back a virtual slot. I was going to say slot machine. Jesus, a virtual arcade machine. Then I'm in. Let me feed quarters back into that Ninja Turtles 4-player game, and I'm in. I'll buy all the SUI USDC, whatever they're going to call it, SDC that you want.
Shout out to SDC. Let's go over to Knock for some more context, then we'll tag in Sinjin.
Yeah, I think like the whole Playtron thing with like the console and this programmable stablecoin is probably a medium deal until we have more information. Like, it's impressive that they sold 10,000 consoles for sure, especially in a world where like PlayStation has failed or largely failed to do the same thing from like a handheld perspective. So I think the ability to get that live for it to be relatively performant is interesting. We'll see how that plays out. The programmable stablecoin feels kind of weird to me. It might be an app token, in which case I think it makes a ton of sense. We've seen a lot of this, a lot of teams looking at app tokens, and for Sui to sort of make their wave with a relatively new technology, I think is an interesting concept. So we'll see how that plays out. One of the things that sort of struck me about the programmability was that they're actually sort of pegging the stablecoin to U.S. Treasury bonds, not US dollars one to one, which effectively does the same thing. But the difference is with treasury bonds, you earn yield over 5, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it might be, typically that yield is relatively low, like 1.5 to like 2%, if that. And the article mentioned that there might be a way for users to sort of earn some of that yield as a way for like playing games or participating within the ecosystem. So that I think it's pretty interesting. Um, from a yield perspective, it's nowhere near as exciting as the APY on literally any other yield mechanic in crypto. And from a stablecoin perspective, I still probably feel better using something like USDC or USDT that is backed with billions of dollars. Yeah, I think that the stablecoin is probably a non or no deal until we have more information about what this will actually be, what it'll actually look like, and why it exists in the first place.
Yeah, that's one of the things that kind of confuses me about this is people seem excited to celebrate its existence, but also nobody seems to have a clear answer of like why it's exciting. Let's go over to Sinja and then tag in Daryl from B3, see if he has an answer.
Yeah, Sui's very interesting because they're kind of just doing their own thing, and they're kind of a cross between like the corporate positioning of how Solana really developed independently from what the other trends were going on in crypto, and Cardano, where you have no fucking idea what they actually do other than they're a fucking blockchain. Because I urge people to ask, like, to tell me like what killer game or app or anything that's on Sui exists other than they're really good corporate BD, which is doing extremely well. And so I think it works with their narrative. I think they're very smart with it, and I think they're definitely like their BD team is definitely focused on that kind of mainstream adoption. And so I think much to Koji's point about like quarters and stuff like that, I think it works for them in terms of narrative. And I think, as well, like when, was it Solana that had their own phone came out, and, they stole a crap ton as well. Where people are buying like multiple phones actually. And this was all for like farming airdrops and tokens. And I think that's, the motivation that's happening here as well. So, kudos to them. I mean, they're doing something that's really unique to them, and it's working for them, obviously, with all their success and stuff like that. And they're playing this game very well. I don't know what the end game is, but for the investors, it seems to be good.
Daryl from B3, what are your thoughts on this gaming stablecoin? Something to be celebrated?
Yeah, I feel like I'm with you guys. I don't know why we need it right now, other than the fact that it's great for the Sui narrative. But I was actually on a panel with the Sui team back at Token 2049, and it was super interesting to hear how they think about product development and building for developers. It was really like focused on core developer pain points right now, if you're a game developer, and like things they can solve for. And I think we all know this, like payments is like a huge pain in the ass for everyone building, right? I think one of the few things that's actually worked in crypto is like stable coins. And I feel like it's an interesting point in time we're at right now where you're starting to see this divergence, right? Where you have coins that are super speculative, content coins, app coins, launch coins, whatever, right? And then you have like money coins, let's call them, right? Like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then stables. And I think stables are seen more as fintech. And so I feel like if we were to wedge into Web2 gaming, right, like the Riots of the world and Epic, like the way they would start to dip their toes into crypto would be through stables, presumably. So I think like it's smart on Sui's part to think about like how to actually solve core problems for game developers. I think the problem I have with this is like we're about to have 1 million stablecoins, and I think normies are going to lose their mind on like which one to use, like PayPal, USDC, you know, Sui dollar, right? Like Robinhood dollar. There's going to be 1 billion of these, and then we're going to have these stranded assets across different chains, and then we're going to have to find a way to, you know, put it back together and clean up the mess. So I feel like that's a challenge that crypto always runs into. We always like do too much, and then we have to figure out a way to consolidate it and clean it up. So I am bullish on the team for sure for trying it and giving it a shot, but also like it's just going to lead to more tech debt and more problems. I think one additional thing that I wanted to flag. I used to work on USDC back at Coinbase, and one cool thing that I've seen no one do in the stablecoin space is actually this idea of on-chain streaming rewards. So back at Coinbase, we wanted to give everyone who had USDC in a smart contract wallet, like basically immediate rewards just for holding it in your wallet, right? So, right now you have to go on Coinbase in order to get the yield from USDC and the interest, right? But just imagine if you were holding it in any wallet and you would just be airdropped and streamed rewards like every minute or whatever amount of time, right? I feel like that is actually an innovation that someone in the stablecoin space should do. Like we explored it, super big tech lift, but if someone cracks that, like that's actually an innovation in stablecoins that I'm looking forward to.
Can I ask Daryl also, is there a risk of whenever everybody has a stable coin, they become less stable? I'm not a very technical person, but I know whenever people are talking about like Tether, they're like, oh, $60 billion of assets. Like it's pretty safe. USDC, similar, we quote these big numbers, but if there's 100 of them, they can't all be so big, right? Does that mean they're less stable?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I think it depends on the counterparty. So it's like who's backing the stablecoin, and like Knox said, most of these are usually backed by Treasury, so you can be pretty confident that like there is funds backing the stablecoin should folks want to redeem it and want to earn interest on it. But there are some crazy degen ones where like they're not always collateralized one to one, right? And then you get these crazy yields that aren't actually from the underlying principal, and so I would just go for like the safe ones, which sounds like the Sui one is in the camp of. Like they'll put your money in a bank, invest it in treasuries, and then give you some yield on it. So that's boring vanilla, but at least they won't rug.
Hey, we take those around here, man. Thanks for the additional insight based on that insane experience that you had working on USDC before. I'm going to tag in Tony V, who hasn't had a chance to chime in yet. Then we'll go to Kevin Lambert.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a big deal, and I think that I feel that way because it feels like it's a real show me the money situation, and Sui is showing that they can show us the money, that they're selling products that people want to buy and spend money on, beyond just a speculative vehicle. I assume that the 10,000 pieces of hardware they sold weren't all speculative vehicles. Maybe they were. Um, but I think that the idea that that Daryl just forwarded, it feels like that kind of innovation is further enabled or more likely to happen with a team that is building like a what seems to be from the outside looking in a financially responsible organization that's going to be able to continually back a stable coin and then use that for to forward its own business needs or drive more demand or drive more retention amongst its ecosystem. And so I'm super bullish on the idea of companies that are generating revenue, creating ways to enshrine that positive cash flow on chain in such a way that their customers or their users can benefit from.
I love the take from Tony V. Kevin Lambert, what are your thoughts here? Any interesting applications for a gaming specific stablecoin?
Isn't this the point where like someone invoked the name of Gabe Blade and he just appears and says, "Have you heard about app tokens and how good they are?" Like, isn't that just kind of what we're talking about here? It's funny because like the benefits of a gaming or a Sui specific stablecoin are pretty much just like you get extra regulatory compliance, you get um, you get stability, you get that programmability that you want, and you could do things like Daryl was saying, like soft staking and stuff like that, which I agree would be pretty cool. I don't know that we need it, but I've been really impressed with Sui, and I let me caveat, I'm not an investor, so talking about them is just how I see them. We talked to their team. I've seen a little behind the curtains of what they're building and their philosophy. They're really talented, and so they've got some big ideas, and some of them are pretty exciting. And I'm going to go medium deal on this because there's potential here. But I mean, it feels like an app token to me. But an app token that is also a stable coin has interesting, it's got interesting permutations to it. because they'll be able to do things with it and have that full control. And I'm interested to see what they cook with it. That's going to take it to big deal or little deal, is the execution of it. But just, there's a world where it totally flops and everybody just uses USDC, or they add some really unique programmable features that you couldn't have without full control, and everybody's like, why did nobody else do this sooner?
Interesting. So it might be a slowly then all at once kind of situation there. Let's go over to Will Spangler, then tag Knockback in.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it simple. I think this is I think this is a deal. It is. I'd say it's a little deal as far as deals go. Just because I think it's awesome to hear that people are finally starting to rally around stablecoins as kind of the go to for gaming. Because I have been saying this for a while, since I heard it from someone much smarter than me. And I think that however we make it easier to get to usable in-game assets on chain for people, and however that is made more accessible to people, that is the best way to go. And I think that this is an attempt to do that. Again, I'm not incredibly in depth on the details of how this coin functions, and I think that there's a lot of exciting things that can be done that have already been talked about, and I hope it goes that way. But however we make it easier to engage with NFTs, the better.
The next topic that we have here is still on Sui, and Vo was part of the inspiration here for this topic. Sui sold out 10,000 units of their handheld. Has better hardware, by the way, than the Switch 2. Dub says he was actually playing Elden Ring on it in Dubai, and it was quite good. Those 10K units that they were sold were all at a $600 price point. If you were one of the first 1,000 people to buy one, you also minted an NFT that was mythic rarity. Everyone else got a common version of that same NFT, which will be quote unquote rewarding holders with potential future rewards, which I think we can all read between the lines there. The question, though, is can this compete with traditional handhelds like the Steam Deck, Nintendo Switch, or Xbox's new rumored handheld that was leaked recently as well? And do you think people are buying these for hardware or more speculative airdrop farming, a la the Solana phone and stuff that we've seen before? I think Dub may have ordered like 10 of these things, which I assume is a pretty common approach to this kind of speculative investment in handhelds. And how many other people fall into that same category? My one additional follow on to this is I want to ask over under public sales. If we just went a full on public release of this thing, would we see 100K or more sales, units sold, not $100,000 worth of sales, but 100,000 units, since they were clearly able to blow 10K out of the water? Let's go to Jerry, then we'll tag in Koji.
Yeah, you asked a few questions. Which one do you want me to answer?
I want you to answer. I guess, does it matter at this price point? And then also, do you think they could actually do it at a higher volume?
No, I don't think so. Because there's just like not name recognition to it, and it's not a knock on Sui, because like I'm sure they just went to like a hardware manufacturer and just said, "Hey, slap the Sui name on this," and so I mean, it's not a knock on the hardware. I think like people just know Asus, they know Steam, those things would be important, and then like let's just not kid ourselves, right? Like I don't want anybody to in this conversation to say I bought this because I want to play my games on it. Because you would have just bought a Steam Deck a year and a half ago, right? You bought this because you think that there's going to be rewards coming, and that's great. That's fine. But I don't think that they needed to go get 10,000 pieces of hardware to do that. They could have just sold an NFT, said, "Hey, this is going to be continuous ecosystem. We could pay a fucking Fiverr artist $300, and they could have gotten the same outcome here." So I don't think that this really moves the needle for me. Like, eh, are they going to make more? If so, I'm pretty bearish on that. But I don't think this is going to like outcompete anything in hardware. And I think hardware is just dying a very slow death in the games industry. So it's a no there. And can you remind me of the other part? I'm sorry.
No, let's just go ahead. We'll circle back to you in a second, Jerry. Let's expand the conversation. Let's go to Koji. Koji, what do you think about these handhelds in Web3 trying to compete against the big dogs that we named? And, comparable hardware, but does that mean they can create like a viable user experience that people want to use instead of a Switch or a Steam Deck?
Yeah, I mean, Sam, I know you're trying to host a show, and you asked at the beginning of this topic, like, are people buying this on speculation? There's no sense in even asking that question because, like, we exist in Web3. Like, there's no way people are buying this for anything other than speculation, and that's fine. Like, and there's no knock against what they're doing with their hardware because I want one, right? And maybe not even for speculative purposes. I just love gaming devices, but like I don't know that it has legs outside of Web3. I mean, the answer is 100% under 100,000 units, outside of Web3 for sure. I mean, 10K for sure they could do, but 100,000 I don't really see. And I think as much as it pains me because he disagreed with me earlier, I have to agree with Jerry in that the name recognition isn't there. You know, like there are some hardware manufacturers that could come out with like if Steel Series or something came out with a handheld device, some people might buy it, and it's not Steam Deck and it's not Razer or whatever, but if the price point was right, sure. But a company like Sui that your average gamer has never heard of, there's no way they're going to touch this device, especially at that price point.
So I guess I'll go to Lems here. Lems, do you think that this is like bullish for Sui? That if people are only buying it for speculation, it seems like a lot to do on the R&D side. You have to figure out manufacturing, operating systems. You have to get deals lined up, et cetera. It's not the same as just kind of like ripping an NFT collection out that you could spin up in a few weeks or something. This is a big commitment here.
I don't know. I feel like in Web3, we have seen so many times people make these sort of naive decisions where they're like, oh, like if we do this, then this will get the gamers or this will bring the people here. Like, let's look at the Solana phone. Like, that was out for like a year. And then all of a sudden it got a bonk airdrop and they flew off the shelves, right? Like, it was purely for speculative purposes. Like, Dub has ordered like 10 of these things. I've heard a few other people say they've ordered a few of them because they're like, oh, well, what if you get airdrops for every token for every game in the Sui ecosystem, right? It's like, if they sold 10K units, is like that's what most of it's being sold for. That's not to say some of those people might not play games on them. They might actually, a few people might actually play games on them, but I would say like 95% were purely just for any speculative airdrop. And as we know, it's like it's not also about high quality hardware. It's about distribution. And Sui is a thing that no one's ever heard of in the traditional world. Like, traditional gamers ain't heard of this shit. They're gonna just see it as another another third party random handheld from like that I just don't care about, versus they use a Steam Deck, Nintendo Switch, like the Xbox One. Even PlayStation struggled, as I think it was Jerry said. So I think, yeah, it's unless they manage to get some absolute banger games on their chain, which go viral and blow up, and then maybe people have some interest in it. But you got to have the distribution first. Otherwise, I feel like the hardware is dead on arrival.
Hear me out. What if they put it on Temu?
They're going to
Shut up
sell
and
it
take my
for
money.
$39.99 instead of 600. I also want to hear from Vo on this. Vo, I know, had some strong feelings earlier this week in the Wolves and Friends chat. If she's around and ready to speak on it, let's go to Kevin Lambert. Then we'll circle over to her.
I just wanted to riff on this point. I agree that primarily if you think, why are people going to buy these, right? Just to get to your question, can they move 100K? Why would someone buy this? Well, speculation. Yes, check. Okay, if there's a bonk airdrop on it, I'm getting it, or whatever, right? Or if there's a promise of financial riches, of course. But also if there's a new experience that I couldn't have, like, hey, there's a way that they incentivize streamers, like game streamers or game players, or there's a new experience that I couldn't have and you can only get it on this device. If they're cooking up something like that, it could move units in the same way that speculation would, right? And if you have both of those, then holy crap, right? So I don't know what the experiential side of this handheld is that goes above and beyond a Steam Deck. But I know some of the crypto side, and there's some things there with the programmable tokens that you can do. So I'm really interested to see what they do. But it all comes down to either why would people want it, and I think outside of speculation today, there isn't much.
Great stuff from Kevin Lambert. Vo, I know you were pretty bullish on this one. What's your take on sort of the rest of the opinions we've had on the panel so far between the stable coin and also the Sui play, and what makes you more excited about it?
Yeah, I think a lot of great takes all around, even if they're dissenting opinions from mine. Yeah, I think a lot of the questions and maybe bearishness people have is just there isn't a lot of information. I think there's like 1 or 200 in existence right now in user hands. I have one of them, and I got to demo it, and it's really nice. I'm not a fan of like handhelds or hardware at all. Just my PC, and that's it. That's what I'm used to. We have a Switch that I never use it. Easy never uses it, but this was actually really nice. It's cool to see all of my Epic games, all of my Steam games, and then also pair that with Web3 games, and obviously, hopefully, Game Dollar is their stablecoin, is Playtron's stablecoin. Sorry, actually connects these somehow. I think it'd be really cool if you could use this game dollar as Steam credits essentially. It looks like from early like works of or sorry, mock-ups, it looks like it would work similar to Apple Pay. It's just like a payment option. So yeah, hopefully it's not just that, even though that is like cool or whatever. But yeah, I'm actually like pretty excited that it works better than our Switch. And apparently like spec for spec, it's better than the new Switch, which is at a pretty similar price point. And then, of course, like it is on the same level, if not better, than Steam Deck. Can run Elden Ring, Fortnite, yeah, any game off the grid. So I don't know. I'm not invested. I'm not paid. I think it's cool. Even if it doesn't really gain adoption, I think it's still pretty cool to see these like Web3 brands actually trying new things, even if it doesn't work. I think that's something we should celebrate at its core. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But, it's cool to rally around teams that are just trying to do something.
Yeah, I've heard the Switch and Switch 2 hardware is, excuse my French, but straight booty. I'm curious, what about the experience from the actual gameplay side makes you feel like you're picking it up versus the Switch? Is it exclusively like the fact that you can pivot onto Web3 games seamlessly, or is there something else about the experience that just feels better?
Yeah, I think it's mainly just playing games that you don't really think of or can't play on Switch. But the console itself is like very, I don't know, it's very intuitive. I also like have given their team a lot of feedback on it, so I'm not just like all sunshine and rainbows. I've had my fair share of bugs, and it is like a beta prototype right now, so it's expected. But they're very quick to iterate. They're very quick to change things. It's a good size. I think it's bigger than a Steam Deck or a Switch by a little bit. We had a company offsite right after Dubai when I picked it up, and I showed it to a bunch of our coworkers, and everyone was like, "Oh, what is this? Like, this is sick." And even people at Magic Eden don't like buy Sui, or their bags are not forced to like this thing, but everyone was like taking pictures. Everyone was really excited, and this is like a combination of like crypto industry veterans and from engineers to biz to the founders, and people are excited. I think the concept is really novelty inherently, and even if it's just that and it doesn't work at all, I'm bullish on, like I said, teams trying new things.
All you see with the great comments is the bear cases. I haven't heard about the Solana phone since the airdrop, so there's that, which is fair. But then he also says in another comment, if Vo likes it, then I'm bullish. Knock with the thumbs down and going to you. Then we're tagging in Daryl from B3.
All right. First of all, I have a whole drawer of Solana Sega phones in my house.
Which
So
again is
I
the first time
definitely,
we've heard about it
yeah, I'm,
since.
I'm definitely the type of person who will buy a bunch of these things just to prospectively farm. What people don't talk about is the Solana Seeker that was the successor to the Solana Sega, sold 140,000 units, brought in $45 million in revenue for that ecosystem. So I think that this is probably not about whether or not this particular version of this thing can compete long term, and probably more about Sui dipping their toes in the ecosystem to better understand how do we create these things, what does the actual process look like, can we deliver something on a brand name somewhere down the future, somewhere down the line rather, where we can be successful with this. If you're looking at handheld consoles, it's not even in the top five. There's like three versions of the Asus console. There's a couple of versions of the Razer console. Then you start talking about the two versions of the Switch that are going to live side by side in the existing Switch and the Switch 2, because there will be some backwards compatibility. And then you have to deal with the Steam Deck. And then there's Xbox coming out with one, and surely PlayStation will give it another shot. So there's a lot of competition here. but there's also a ton of competition in the mobile market. And we've seen Solana go from 20,000 units sold, almost every single one of them was purchased purely out of speculation, to a phone that is now selling 100,000 plus units that will probably be used because the same level of speculation is not there. Given the fact that everybody on this panel didn't even know, or most people probably didn't know, that there was a second version of that phone. So I would make a bet that this is probably one of two things. One, it looks really good from like a foundation perspective. Hey, we want to take gaming seriously. We've had a successful run on hardware. We were able to sell out 10,000 units as a proof of concept at $600. That looks great on Sui, and I think that is a net positive for their outlook on gaming. The second piece is we also now have the experience to deliver this thing. We know what it's like. We know what it takes to source hardware and create an ecosystem and create a product. So somewhere down the line, if they do the things that Sinjin was talking about earlier, which is bring great games into the ecosystem, execute well on the stable coin, make sure that this is an ecosystem that people want to participate in. Now all of a sudden you have a much more compelling sell for the second version or the second generation of this product. I would venture to bet that that's the goal here. I doubt anybody at Sui thinks that this is something that can compete with one of the 50 different versions of the handheld systems that exist, or even something like the backbone that just clips onto your phone and allows you to play games. This is probably a step or digging the foundation for something that comes in 2 or 3 years from now if they're successful.
Great stuff from Knock. Daryl with the hand up from B3. Then we're going back to Vo and then Sinjin.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Nak here, and I'm gonna share some firsthand color. So when I was on the panel in Dubai, Sui's product lead was actually showing off the play. It looked sick. I didn't get a chance to try it myself, but I think the rationale for trying out this product was they wanted to do something different, I think, and try and explore a new distribution channel, put like a hardware product out there that they would be proud of, and a device that was like, high performance and comparable to its Web2 counterparts. And it sounds like from all the positive feedback right now, like they hit the mark. And I think we should celebrate that because it's hard to build hardware in a good product. But actually, someone asked the Sui lead, like, is Sui investing in hardware? And she was like, hell no. She was like, we never really want to do this again because I think, Sam, to your point, it's fucking difficult and it's a huge investment from like a resourcing standpoint and time. And I think so. My takeaway from that was like I agree it was like a exploration exercise, and so maybe if their games give a ton of airdrops, then they'll do another version, or maybe they onboard more games that require a form factor like this, like Nox said. Then yes, but I think from my takeaway in my session with her, it sounds like it's more a collectible, like a one-time edition and a one-off versus like a long-term hardware strategy.
Interesting. Yeah, a very big commitment from them. If it is just a one off, it seems like a huge investment to make that one off. I am not allowed to say who it is, but I know for a fact that there's another Web3 gaming chain that has actually developed their own handheld, which is, from what I've heard, basically ready to release, but they have just decided not to make it public. And I don't know if they'll ever see the light of day or if they're just waiting for the right opportunity. But I know this market will be even more saturated than it already is. Let's go over to Vo, then to Sinjin to wrap this one up.
Yeah, I want to bring up a couple other points too. Is like, because I'm like giggable right now. I'm usually not, but yeah, don't have Jonah here to say everything sucks. But yeah, there's a few things that are like really different about this. Is one is like you buy a Switch, you're down $600, and then you have to keep buying games. This one like hopefully can make you money, right? Like that's the speculative part to it. And Game Dollar being a stable coin is like uniquely positioned to do that, as you can do like soft staking, like someone mentioned earlier, you can program it, but also because it's like a dollar, right? Like one game dollar is $1 in my bank account, and that's super easy for gamers versus like 0.00086 or something. And the other part too is like Playtron is not just like developing the device for them; it's a full OS operating system. And I guess it's like much cheaper. And it sounds like this is just a test and proof of concept, probably to do a raise or something. Um, but the other side of this is like comparatively to Windows, it's like, 80% cheaper. I think Windows is like upwards of $100 per head. This Playtron OS is like $10. So I think that the way they want to go about it is like this is their proof of concept for VCs and for people that are using Windows as an OS, to eventually go much bigger and truly compete on that level. But yeah, I don't know if those are their exact plans. That would be my speculative opinion on it.
Yeah, interesting. I feel like that could go either way. Your point is a good one about making their own OS being bullish from the perspective of being able to save money and hopefully have better margins on the console, but also having Windows as an established OS and a user experience that people are used to. Obviously, you would have to assume is a better user experience. Also, I guess Windows isn't designed to necessarily function on these handheld devices, so there's an argument to be made either way there. Let's go over to Sinjin.
Yeah, some really great points from all the panelists, from Vo to Knock and Daryl on it. Yeah, just to give some color on it, as well. Like I've spoken with Evan and the team for like way back, even before they launched the chain, because they've always been really, really bullish on gaming. One of their first hires was from Google Games on the partnership side, to really get into games, and they had some really good titles at the very beginning, which never took off, and these were pretty good developed games. It's just that they didn't have the distribution, they didn't have the player base, and they didn't have the marketing. And so, like, in terms of like where I feel this is, and I think the level at which we're talking is the same which Vo was mentioning and Daryl was mentioning as well, was that, for them, this is really a business development play more than anything else, to be in the sector in order, like on a business level, to be in the gaming sector. So like it's really a long-term kind of entry point through the hardware side, because they literally have made gaming a priority since the very beginning, even before they launched the chain, and it really hasn't worked out. And so this is a much more straightforward play, especially like the way that their corporate side has been, doing very well for raising and so on and so forth. And they've always had that DNA coming from like Facebook and stuff like that, that they were not like grinding with low level VCs or token funds or whatever like that. They were always really talking at a really high level for corporate development. And in terms of the hardware wise, like just to get some further color, like Evan's Taiwanese, and if you don't know, like Taiwan is like the last basin for really hardware development and software development, like specifically for hardware, right? And so that's a really different type of software because it doesn't really exist outside of Taiwan any longer, like anywhere in the world, like compiler, like hardware, software for like specifically hardware. And that's actually a much more straightforward development. I think a lot of the development right now, like when it comes to these handhelds, is going to be really like off the shelf technology, and it's really a cost issue. And then the design as well. Obviously, you're making something, you're putting something together. There's going to be, like growing pains there, but it's relatively straightforward. But the capital cost is a lot. But I think for the average, not the average, but a high level like institutional investor or VC that wants to see potential like sector growth, this is a very straightforward way for them to do it. So again, like kudos to them for doing this in the sense that it works for them. But for the greater Web3 market or the impact and stuff like that, I think it's just really limited just to Sui.
Great stuff, Sinjin. Way to wrap it up there at the end, put a bow on it. A couple of quick comments and an ad read, and then we're going to get to a juicy Coinbase X Riot Games topic that I'm pretty excited about. But Kaz in the comments says, I actually really doubt that it's a one-off for one reason. He says long-term vision engineering. They've likely seen a future where such hardware will bring more people to their ecosystem, so they decided to make a sacrifice to do this test. Yeah, it's a bet, but a bet backed by data. Excuse me. Icy also says, I pre-ordered the second Solana phone, LOL, which is a reference back to what Nock was saying. Hold on to your helmets, though, because Avalanche is the king of gaming chains, the official chain of Gamified. Join us in London for an epic summit to find out how they're conquering the cold with cutting-edge technology in a community that's frosty as it is fierce. Bundle up, bring your A game, and craft your very own L1 to service all your blockchain gaming needs. And giddy up, gamers, get ready to gallop into Game 7 Nation. They've signed 150 games with their 30 million wallets ready to rumble because they have MetaMask in their back pocket. Come join the digital nation and get your citizenship so you can level up your life. Thank you to Game 7 for being the official infra of Gamified. And Star Atlas isn't just about spaceships and lasers. It's about building a community, a galactic civilization where players write the rules. So if you're ready to trade your boring Earth life for a cosmic adventure, join the Star Atlas fleet today and hop in the Discord to grab a game key. Thank you to the official game of Gamified. I'm getting your sentiment score on Coinbase being the exclusive blockchain of Riot Games. Riot says they're now sponsored by Coinbase and they're testing Web3 integrations for esports leagues potentially. Coinbase said, quote, we're going to explore opportunities to share insights and enhance the fan experience through Web3 technology. Could this be signaling that Riot may be open to the idea of blockchain integration in future titles, or is this purely them maybe overstating the impact of the sponsored dollars coming from Coinbase? Knock with the hand up first.
Solid 5. My last time in esports was right around the time that TSM signed a massive deal with FTX, renamed their organization to TSM FTX, and we all know how that ended up. Obviously, this is Coinbase and Riot, and not FTX and TSM, so you have to feel a lot better about this type of partnership. I also think it signifies something that sort of plagued esports for quite a while. It has been very difficult to sign sponsorship deals with anybody who does anything with gambling or crypto in particular, if you're playing in a Riot Games esports ecosystem. So I think that this signals that they have lifted that entirely and there won't be this like approval process that sort of went on behind the scenes. And I think that that's a net positive for anybody who is in esports. It's going to be a lot easier to speak to crypto companies and hopefully get some dollars to help support the business that you're creating there. That's a positive for sure. Um, I don't. I say 5 because while I think it's good for esports, I don't think it's going to be all that impactful for Coinbase long term. For a couple of reasons. That ecosystem is still pretty antagonistic when it comes to their involvement with crypto and whether or not they even want to see anything with it. So if you look at the way that they plan to integrate, it'll be some Coinbase placement like in between rounds on Valorant. So you'll have like an eco score brought to you by Coinbase where they'll just dive into like the economics of the individual teams, or a gold rush score in League of Legends talking about how much gold teams have accumulated. They're not really integrating Coinbase into those games in any capacity. I think that this is a get our foot in the door. Let's build a partnership with Riot Games. Somewhere down the line, maybe there's an opportunity for us to do something more here, but this feels more of a sponsorship for a massive esports ecosystem in Valorant and League than it does some sort of like, seeds of an integration between crypto and Riot Games ecosystem.
Dude, 5 might be the worst score in all of Sentiment score. We have to just ban 5s. You're only allowed to do 4, 6, or above or below from now on. I do want to point out, though, Coinbase has been the official, I guess, blockchain sponsor of Team Liquid for, I think, at least a full year, if not 2 or 3 years already. So there is some esports integrations. However, Riot Games, being obviously the creators of League of Legends, Valorant, TFT, and some other beloved games, it seems like a little bit of a bigger impact than potentially Team Liquid could have. Knock, you in real life waved me down.
Yeah, just a little bit of additional context there. So the partnership with TL is actually based on an agreement. Riot Games has set up this thing where you can apply for specific categories, right? They have open categories of sponsorship. So if you're in their leagues, you can have a sponsor that matches within these particular categories. You don't need to approve it with Riot. They have restricted categories which need to be approved. TL is one of those teams that were approved. Why I think this is a big deal from like the esports side of things is that this is very clearly Riot Games saying we're cool with this now. And that restricted category, at least for crypto, is no longer there. So I think it is a massive step forward on the side of teams looking for sponsorship dollars. But again, I don't know that that changes anything from the crypto side at all.
I'm just excited for Riot to just coin it, you know?
Just coin it, dude. I think Vo had the hand up for a second. Not sure if my space is just bugged out, but since you have an esports background,
Yeah,
why don't you
yeah, yeah. Not really. It was like a very small comment, but Team Liquid actually had like a booth at the Sweet Base Camp. So yeah, it sounds like they're kind of leaning into different chains.
Yeah, interesting that there's no exclusivity there. I know they also were involved with the wildcard event. Shout out to Tony and to Dub. Actually, on that note, let me send it over to Tony V next. Oh, and Tony, give me your sentiment score.
Yeah, I mean,
Not a 5.
yeah, I'm a I'm an 8 here. I think this is I think that it's just another one of those things where the safer that crypto feels, the better off I think we're going to be. It's like like the Coca-Cola, see something 5 times before it has an impact on you from a brand standpoint, and just the more that sweaty kids watching Valorant on Saturdays or Friday afternoons see crypto logos as a thing that are not like these mystical evil things. It's not it makes it so Coinbase isn't like the equivalent of something that these kids would expect to see on the dark web, right? Because you don't like those things don't get advertised on esports streams. So, I don't know that if I were like trying to tie it to a specific ROI as a member of the team that's sponsoring this, I'd be able to. But I think that like culturally is the right way to put it. But like from an industry standpoint, it's overall a good. I'm glad someone is doing it. I wouldn't spend the money to do it, but I'm glad somebody is.
Appreciate you weighing in, Tony. Let's go over to Kevin Lambert, then we'll tag in St. John.
Man, I think I'm going to one up Tony here and go 9.
Oh, baby.
And maybe I'm like, I've got the rose-colored glass beer goggles on here, but like, Team Liquid already had the sponsorship, right? But that's a little different. When Riot takes on that particular partnership, they are saying, any headline risk that comes with that, we're totally cool with. And that telegraphs to me huge things in the future. And so I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe that this goes beyond, dollars for our esports organization. I think this telegraphs a willingness to explore and be cool with future blockchain integration in their titles. And, I'm going to manifest that. Web3 gaming is inevitable.
Yeah, I'm curious what people think the motivation here is. Obviously, Riot, a wildly successful gaming studio that's making plenty of money. So I have to assume this is like a subsidy for essentially like Riot Games esports, potentially. Any guesses on what it might cost to subsidize all of Riot Games esports with a blockchain sponsor across the board here? If anybody wants to throw that out in addition to their sentiment score. But let's go to St. John up next.
Yeah, I'm giving it a solid 6. And why it's more on the positive side is because it is a big deal because there is potential fallout and there is on the forums like Coinbase, blockchain, what's kind of going on. But like what they've said is intentionally, I think, very vague, and it's not focused really on the gameplay itself, but more like the fan engagement side. And I think it's telling they're not saying B3 or they're getting more in the weeds of technology. They're saying Coinbase. And what Coinbase is looking like right now in the world and in the States is really, this exchange, this entity more than anything else as a business that is like a financial, like crypto business rather than, this technology or related with, the level of speculation or fraud that we're seeing in terms of like YOLO or let's get in this and stuff like that. Although the Coinbase it or coin it kind of takes away from that. But I think it's really a long-term play for them, and it is a big deal. But on the subject of like Team Liquid and esports and stuff like that, obviously, like I talked to Team Liquid, like not talk to Team Liquid, I talked to Victor, one of the two co-CEOs, way back when we had launched our game, and I said, "Are you guys interested in working with us?" And they're like, "Oh man, like no, this is like 2021." But you have to understand that the situation with esports is that like nothing is really going to bring them back to the valuations with which they raised at. And is it easier for esports teams now in the last couple of years? No, it's not. I mean, they need to get sponsorship. They need to find other business, and this is really like opened up the fact that like crypto and associations with blockchain and stuff like that is something that if they were doing well right now, they wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole, right? But because they're not, they have to kind of look for whatever type of collaborations they can to try to get any funding in that could be like a growth, like a growth engine, because there are no growth engines, right? Sponsorship is like the only way they get money in, but like have they figured something else out, whether it's like fan app? No, they haven't, right? So do I think it's good for esports in general? Yes, but like, sometimes we conflate like Riot with esports, and Riot is not esports, but Riot composes a huge amount of that with LOL. So I think it's actually a good six. I think it's really positive. I think they're willing to take it on the chin without like being too discreet. I mean, too overt about like what they're going to actually do, and they're smart about it, and they're going to take it step by step. And I think with Riot, they can take it step by step. And if they get Coinbase as a sponsor, it opens up that to the more like corporate established, uh, you know, um, crypto sponsors that are not like on the kind of retail, FOMO, YOLO side, but more on the corporate, established side. I think it's good. I mean, if Gemini or other exchanges come in and stuff like that, I think it's going to be good for esports just to get some additional revenue coming in.
I want to go to Will's up next. Will's, what's your sentiment score here? And if you had to ballpark it, how much do you think Coinbase shelled out for the official Riot Games blockchain?
My sentiment score is going to be a 7 because I think that's the only one in the upper half that hasn't been done yet. So we'll just cover all of that on the positive side. I think it's a good thing. How much that would cost? I mean, it depends, really. It depends on if they're going to be spinning up their entire own, purpose-built blockchain. God, I've heard of someone doing that somewhere, and I know that it's not too expensive. But if you have any questions about that, ask me. Um, uh, I think as far as the sponsorship goes, I'm that's the one area of this where I'm really not that bullish. I don't think this signifies any kind of strong opinions on like wanting to go in a Web3 direction from Riot Games, because I see Coinbase everywhere, and that's why I think that this is good, because it's a reinforcing of this idea. Look, they're on the F1 cars, they're on the basketball hoops, and now they're on the gameplay clips. Coinbase is everywhere. It's top of mind in all of these different areas where people who may not be fully involved in Web3 are like, maybe I want to go buy some Bitcoin. And that's where I think the real value is. It's getting to gamers where they are in what they're doing, integrating themselves into that kind of niche advertising corner that everyone tries to get into, where people don't even really know why they're making decisions, but they just are because the name is everywhere. And that's why I think it's really great, is because it's getting behind that kind of, it's not advertising directly to gamers being like, hey, we've put blockchain in your favorite game, because we know how that goes. We know how people react to that. It's getting behind that defense, and that's why I think it's really smart, so that when eventually these gamers, maybe not through Riot directly, want to get into Web3, they'll be like, oh, I heard Coinbase somewhere. Coinbase is probably legit. I saw them on that 360 no scope.
I thought about that 360. Let me buy RP by connecting my wallet, you cowards. I'll do it way more often than having to connect my goddamn Venmo. Knock's bankruptcy flashed before his eyes. Let's go over to Jerry and then to Knock.
I think you guys are all crazy. I think this is like a 3 at best, man. Like, this is nothing more than a crypto company just paying an industry. Listen, dude, fucking, they already sponsor the NBA. You know what I mean? Like, there's already arenas named the Crypto.com Arena, and there was an FTX Arena at one point. And like, Kraken sponsors fucking Williams Racing, is the second most decorated Formula One team of all time. OKX sponsors McLaren. They're the fucking drivers' champions last year. Like, what are we talking about, dude? There's more people that go to one F1 weekend than go to fucking than watch all of Riot Esports in a year. You know what I mean? So like, I think this just doesn't really, like, it's a 3. It would be a 1 if not for the fact that the most crypto averse crowd in the world is like our demographic, like 20 to 40-year-old gamers, right? So like, the only positive is that like, at least those people will have to see Coinbase somewhere, and maybe like eventually there's like a downstream effect of them being like, yeah, crypto's not so bad. But like we're already doing way bigger and better things. So I
Sir,
think just
sir, sir, I am the
yeah.
king of hyperbole, Jerry, and I have to step in here. I'm taking my card and I'm throwing it down as the king of hyperbole
Yeah.
because 1.7 million people watched just the championship for League of Legends last year. 1.7 million people aren't going to live events. That's insane.
Have you
That'd be
heard
like
of the
that'd be like an
National
extinction
Basketball
level
Association?
fucking riot if for a million and a half
The
people to show up to a live
the
event. It's
NBA
fucking
has
nuts.
like 20 million people watch a single game, Tony.
But that's you just said live events. You said more people show up to a live F1 event than watch all of Riot Esports. That's an insane statement. That's a crazy brutal
Okay.
statement.
Okay. Give me two or three. If there's a triple header coming up in F1, that will be comparable to the 1.7 million. Okay, so maybe not one event, maybe a little bit hyperbolic, but like there's already Coinbase is already doing bigger and better things. So it just doesn't really move the needle a ton for me. I would say, depending on length of the deal, Sam's probably a mil.
A mil? $1 million?
Jerry, just walk
Bro,
away. Jerry, walk
Hey,
away. Mute yourself and just walk
make
away,
hey,
brother.
hey, you wanks. Nobody else made a guess. Fucking
dude,
losers.
add three more zeros. Jesus Christ. Let's go to Knock real quick, who is I know is passionate about this, that Daryl's getting tagged in.
Yeah, I hate to be like partially team, like he said some crazy shit just now, but I am mostly team Jerry. This is like it's kind of tough to like be excited about this thing having worked so many years in esports right when all of this was getting hot. For reference, the Team Liquid, or sorry, the TSM and FTX deal was $200 million over 10 years. There were a number of teams, including Team Liquid, that saw well into the eight figures for their 4-year deals on some of these partnerships with big organizations. To Jerry's point, nobody on this panel can tell me who plays in the crypto.com arena, and they're one of the most significant teams in North America. It's the Los Angeles Kings. It's one of the biggest sports teams in the country. So that in and of itself doesn't do a whole lot for
And
me.
also the
If you're
Lakers.
looking at like the partnership here, it's with as safe a company as it gets. This is a public company that has won and gone through and won a bunch of legal cases in the United States. They're really close with the current administration. This is about as softball as it gets for a company like Riot Games, who has historically been very anti-crypto, to sign a deal with a company that is public, that is in the good graces of the United States government. This is a nothing burger from the side of like, this will move crypto forward. Now, what is maybe compelling is that the demographic of most crypto users today, and I guess if you project this out, the demographic of most crypto users in the future are pretty much like the Venn diagram between that demographic and the demographic of people who are playing Valorant and League. It's pretty much a circle. So it's as close to as the exact audience that they're looking for as humanly possible. Maybe there's some downstream effects that if we have crypto or we have Coinbase everywhere, they do it in the live event in Toronto when they have Masters here in a couple of months. They'll do another one when they do it in Shanghai. Like maybe there's enough touch points where if these people do convert, they convert to Coinbase and downstream that makes sense. But like this is not a Riot Games is going to integrate crypto. They're talking to an exchange that is public, that is separate from more of the degenerate things that the Coinbase ecosystem does, and doesn't own a blockchain outright, like as the company Coinbase. I think that this is something that is a dollars in situation for Riot Games with a safe company. It sucks. I want it to be more than that, but
Dude,
like knowing their history, I just can't see it.
and that's there's my take. Exactly, Knock. Is like this is if you're right, this is a 10 in sentiment score. For crypto, this is a 3. This is nothing, man. It doesn't move anything. But if you're Riot, yeah, you're fucking licking your chops right now because you got money from people for an industry that nobody else wants to fucking pay for. So, like, yeah, Riot 10, crypto 3.
Hey, fair take. I want to send it over to Daryl now, closer to the base ecosystem here. Also operating B3, his own chain. Daryl, what do you think? What's the sentiment score here for this ginormous partnership, and what do you think they might have paid for it?
Yeah, I love the back and forth, by the way. I think, I don't know, it's tough. I feel like I can't give a non-biased sentiment score since I'm ex Coinbase. I'm not there anymore, so I don't have a dog in this fight. But I used to work pretty closely with the Coinbase brand marketing team. They're pretty goated, but I think to a lot of people's points on this call, they also pay really well. So maybe I can't give a sentiment score, but I feel like I can give a guess on how much this costs. I would say like the market these days, probably like mid seven figures annually. And I don't know the length of the deal, but you know, somewhere in that ballpark. And I think the main reason for that is like
No, be more specific. Be more specific. What is mid 7? That could mean a lot.
like 3 to 5 maybe, you know, because I think right now like
Oh, oh, not far off from my guess is what you're saying. Okay, cool. Good to know.
I think right now like there's no FTX here. And so you know, Coinbase actually has a lot of bargaining power and leverage. The reason why Coinbase went on a spending spree a couple years ago was actually spurred by FTX. So when FTX had all of the partnerships in esports and MLB, like it actually forced Coinbase for the very first time in Coinbase history to put out like an 8 figure annual budget to spend on marketing. But I think since FTX went down, like everyone's, you know, a little bit more cost conscious. I think what will probably happen from a blockchain standpoint is just a light integration to start. Maybe at some esports events, you'll be prompted to download Coinbase Wallet, and maybe here and there, USDC will be given out as you know a prize pool or a reward, and then eventually integrated into games, right? Because it's like a fintech play. But I don't know like you know, Riot's going to come out with like Riot Chain anytime soon or integrated in any of their titles. But I think what this will give Coinbase is, you know, if and when Riot is ready and the community doesn't fucking revolt, right? If they're ready to do something serious in crypto, Coinbase will be the first call. Just like how Coinbase is the first call for the NBA anytime the NBA wants to do something. And I think that's on us, right? Like we got to convince Riot and make them excited to do it, and then Coinbase will make it happen.
That's a great point that you put at the end there, which is it's sort of like jockeying for positioning on the BD side of things in addition to the exposure that they'll get. I'll be honest, I'm shocked that you think it's only 5 mil a year. I mean, Knock, maybe you remember the FTX deal. Wasn't it like $36 million for 3 years? Or
It's a 10-year deal, 200 mil.
10? Yeah, oh, yeah. So
They
basically,
were spending their customers' money. I don't know if we should look at FTX. Like they were spending crazy money for everything.
Yeah, I just feel like we're not in the FTX era anymore. Definitely back in the day, those deals cost that much because FTX jumped the price for everyone, but I feel like not in this market. I may be wrong, but that's just my gut.
yeah, I think it also lives and dies by like what they actually mean here. Like, what does it mean to integrate Coinbase into Riot Games? Is this just when Riot Games does correspondence, or is it what Nock was talking about? And it's like inside of Valorant or inside of League of Legends or in the shop or something like that. There could be a lot of different elements here. But with that being said, the comparison of spending 20 mil a year just for TSM versus 5 mil a year for all of Riot Games would be a massive disparity between those things. And obviously there is crypto.com arena, there is Kraken sponsoring F1 teams. Like there's other parallels we could draw, but the TSM one is just so esports related that we go there. Sinjin, over to you, bud.
Yeah, I think I 100% agree with all of Daryl's takes on that. And just to go to Knox's point about the Venn diagram, it's a perfect circle. It is, but yet it's like this kind of parallel universe, right? Like they exist on two different planes. Just to give an anecdotal like just story of just how mean I am. So like I'm like a 50-year-old dude who still plays video games, and I play Dota, and I play for fun. So people get pissed off at me because I'm not playing as seriously, and they'll be like, "You fucking noob, you're clearly an old guy because your Twitch skills are so slow. Like, what the fuck's wrong with you, or whatever." And I don't do this now, but like a couple of years back, I would be like, "Yeah, but I own BTC. I own Bitcoin. Do you? No, you're just a poor kid in a basement, like fucking jerking off or whatever like that." And there would just be crickets. There would just be crickets, just because just for anyone to say anything like that, because there is such a divide here. And I think the Coinbase thing is really good. I think the slower they take it, the better. The fact that it happened is a fantastic thing. I mean, it's not like Riot doesn't know like the sentiment about crypto, and I think they're very measured and they're not being stupid about this. And I think it will take so much time actually. So I'm happy for this. But like in terms of that Venn diagram, yeah, on paper it looks like it's exactly the same. but it's two totally different like parallel universes.
Love it, Sinjin. Camille in the audience also says, I love the Riot Games chat. I've been part of the ecosystem since beta. I know the esports scene well. I give this Coinbase X Riot a 3.7. It's great for the esports scene to showcase the trust for crypto again, but this is just a big name, just like the crypto.com arena. He also says, Lakers are bigger than the Kings. Knock, shout out. Shout out.
Yeah, that was fucking crazy. He said that, dude.
I mean, bigger disappointment, maybe.
Shout out to the Canadian bias here for being on ice instead of on wood grain floors. We're going to move on to our last topic of the day. Sorry for cramming this one at the end because it's probably a pretty thick and juicy one to sink our teeth into. Bullish or bullshit on Epic Games versus Apple's ruling. And if you think it will stick or be appealed, I'm going to try my best to add some context here. Still a lot to sort of be sorted through and many, many, many different implications. I'm not going to be able to touch on everything. But a lot of people were extremely excited about Epic winning the case against Apple. Some people were pledging their allegiance to Tim Sweeney because he sort of took this on the chin for a lot of the smaller developers. For anyone who missed it, app developers in the US can now link users from within their app to web store based storefronts, which allows them to bypass Apple's standard commission fees, which I believe were 27% on those kinds of transactions for in app purchases if they were found through the iOS store previous to that. I think we can all see how massive an opportunity that is, especially for Web3 gaming, because a lot of the App Store restrictions apply to Web3 games and even harsher standards. Epic Games also announced that it would allow developers to create their own web shops on Epic Games Store and these would be free of fees for the first 1 million in annual revenue for your application, and then after that there would be a steeper fee. Spotify submitted an update the day after, already driving users to their own website to complete purchasing, so it's not unique to just gaming. I also know that a lot of people are saying, well, now that this is the case in the US, this is going to have a lot of implications overseas. People are going to look at this and say, well, they were able to win the case over there, so why are we paying this fee? Bullish or bullshit on this ruling, and what's the possibility that it might not stick and could be appealed by the Apple App Store? I'm going to send it over to Kevin Lambert. I haven't heard from him in a minute.
Oh my God, 10 out of 10. This is so good. Like immediately we're already pivoting our long-term strategy for monetization at Coin because of this. It's awesome. Like just I mean being able to direct people to the shops, you're not having to pay the 30%. I mean you're going to be able to have loyalty programs and bundles and all kinds of user flows that didn't exist before, which comes with a little complexity. Like there's also the like, hey, wait a minute, why are you taking me out of the app for this? But that's like definitely take that one. um as far as does it stick or not, I believe they appealed. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, which means that it is going to go another round and could go all the way to the Supreme Court. But given how forcefully, how decisive the ruling was, I give it, maybe there's a lawyer who can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to give it a pretty high chance of sticking. Then again, I also gave the Coinbase Riot thing a 9, and Jerry slapped me down with a 3. So maybe I just, live in a fantasy world.
Jerry, are you ready to crush Kevin's dreams for a second time in less than 15 minutes, or are you going to let him live on this one?
I completely agree with Kevin's sentiment, who is so level-headed by saying that this is a 10, and I'm happy he learned his lesson. Yeah, this is amazing, and this is so needed, and like I think you just need to look at like zoom out just outside the games industry. Like everybody is celebrating this as a win. There's a lot of people who just don't monetize. Like, dude, it's been such a pain. Well, it's like a very first world problem. But I've been meaning to upgrade my Spotify account forever, and I can't do it through the App Store. I have to like log on the browser, and I forgot my login. So like, it's just a pain in the ass that these things happen, right? So like, this is much bigger than just a gaming issue, right? It's an issue for anybody that wants to compete with Apple in any way, and Apple is just out competing everybody by having this mega walled garden, right? So this is yeah, it's definitely going to get appealed. I think it'll get shot down in appeals, so this will stand as it is. But this is huge, and you're already seeing it's like Epic offered like a 20% cash back bonus to anybody who spent in their web shop, right? So you have opened up the ability for game teams to outcompete each other and offer more compelling deals for the people that matter, which is the people that are playing the games, right? And thus they'll want to spend more money on those games. So this is yeah, it's such a big win. And you know, it's like thank God somebody fought the fight. I think Tim Sweeney deserves a ton of credit for it. And you know, we're the games industry is in a much better place, you know, business wise because of it.
Yeah, not only is there the ability for games to potentially, bring some of this value back to the consumer, but I think we were also in this crazy race to the bottom where teams are already saying they have to spend 50% of their budget on marketing instead of being able to put more of that toward development. And
Yeah,
you're also getting hedged at the end for 30% of every single dollar that you make. Like it becomes really hard to compete there,
yeah.
right?
Game companies have been, you know, they are a lot of them are redlining and really are operating on like pretty thin margins. So, yeah, this is a big win for anybody who doesn't have like astronomical budgets. So if you're Scopely, you can always just like brute force something. But you know, for the mid-sized teams, like this is a big win. I do want to say one last thing, is I don't think I want to make a weird comparison here, but do you remember how like smoking got really taboo, and then like we almost beat the smoking problem, and then big tobacco was like, well, we don't lose. Let's make vaping a thing. And then like now there's more people that smoke than ever. It's just vaping instead. Like I think that's going to happen in this. I think Apple is going to figure out another way to keep their monopoly going. I think it's going to be with like app store listings, to be honest with you, and like Apple search and discoverability on the app stores. Is I think they will 100% put like more weight to people who aren't using web shops and just monetizing via like Apple's payments processing so they can still take their cuts. So like yeah, it's going to get appealed. It's going to be all the things. Apple is big business, right? They're not going to take this lying down. They're going to find another way to fuck people over. So like this is just like the first step in of many, but you know, I don't expect Apple to just, you know, chalk this up as a loss and then move on. You know, they're going to find another way.
That's a great take. Yeah, you can still buy things outside of our store, but you can only do it with Apple Pay. And if you use Apple Pay, then we get 30%. Look at that. Teddy going crazy in the comments for that one. Whenever you can drop the take there. Let's go over to Sinjin, who's used to bending people to his will. Sinjin, what's your take on Epic versus Apple?
This is like unbelievable. Like it's not even a 10 out of 10. It's a pretty much a miracle ruling. Um, this is one kind of cardinal rule when you're in business is that you don't bank your business strategy on upcoming legislation. And I can tell you there are countless cases where companies built their business model where they there was a pending regulation that we positive for their business, and then they just basically ate up their entire runway, and it just never happened because rulings, legal stuff, political stuff, they don't work on a business timeline. They work on whatever political timeline and the courts and so on and so forth. So if you had said to me like, well, absolutely, when Epic first did this, and people were like, well, when do you think this is going to happen? I'm like, never. Right. Like, I just don't even want to like equate that into like a business, factor at all. Um, and for Web3 gaming specifically, it's so motherfucking humongous because the biggest thing is like, if you're like taking Web3 gaming seriously and you're like looking at an open economy, right? It's impossible to make that work. Even at like Epic's like 17%, right? Or whatever for desktop games or whatever like that. If you're getting taxed 17% gross on your transactions for an open game economy on your token that, is basically powering that, you can't balance an economy whatsoever. And, everyone here knows how non-bullish I am on, Web3 mobile gaming, and it's specifically because of that. But with this opening up, like even myself, like, yeah, we, obviously had a plan, obviously to have some mobile light version of our PC game eventually, right? But this ruling makes it so that I have to put a definite date on when we would start to develop something like that because, this option is open, even if it's on the website base that, you get out of the actual app. I mean, the fact that it's fucking like zero is like unfucking believable. Do I think in the appeal it's gonna change a little bit? I think so. I mean, like the judge was pretty much pissed off because Apple basically in the spirit of the initial ruling, basically did everything they could business wise to like just fuck it. Right. I mean, they were like doing an admin fee for like, I don't know, 27% anyways. So like the judge is like, well, you guys are like just basically like didn't respect the initial legal ruling whatsoever. On appeals, that probably will change. It won't be zero. Maybe it'll be 3, 4, 5, 10%. But like the fact that you're doing it right now, if I was not doing our own like Web3 game and I still had capital because I invested it all into our own studio, I'd fucking do a business right now in this space for Web3. I mean, for like mobile web payments, something, right? And I don't know if you guys are aware, but like in an environment where it isn't gate kept, you look at China, okay, and obviously it's all Android there. Um, Google Play Store is not number one for mobile downloads. I think it's like 3 or like maybe even like 4 or 5, right? It's domestic, what do you call it? Portals, which are the main source for players to download, whether it's the telco itself, like China, like Telecom or whatever, so on and so forth. Like that's where it is. It's like a totally different environment when you get into China, where it wasn't gate kept or walled off. So I think, wow, this is like fucking unbelievable, not just for Web3, but for mobile games in general. Just to have that, and that actually reduces also the heavy level of monetization and might make mobile games a little bit more fun. That's kind of stretching it, but like let's see. But yeah, it's like for Web3 though, this is probably the number one negative strike against Web3 and mobile ever having a chance to even work. And now that's gone. So it's so fucking huge.
Well, boys and girls, we got to celebrate a little bit. Damn, that's not every day that we get to pile up a win like that. I'm going to Koji next. Koji, your take on Apple v Epic.
I mean, the big thing I was gonna say, Jerry mentioned, which is like, I'm sure Apple's gonna find a way to snake more money out of us somehow. And the App Store is number one, right? It's just like getting for the stuff that's already listed. This is a huge one, but getting your stuff listed after the fact, um, they're gonna find ways to deny people who are gonna try to like overly exploit this loophole. I bet because it's already very difficult to get listed on the Apple App Store. I think the biggest winner here is probably Amazon because I know that right now you can't buy Amazon digital goods on the Amazon app in Apple. So as soon as they're able to kick people to their web store in order to buy things like ebooks and whatever, it's going to be huge for them. But no, I think this is a 10. I'm super excited. As long as the ruling stands and we can find ways to like get ourselves listed and exploit this for everything we've got, it's an amazing thing for Web3 because otherwise we'd probably be dead in the water or just be held to an insanely high standard if we had to sort of like somehow filter our crypto earnings back through to Apple 30% or 50% or whatever it would have been.
For those that don't know, Apple generated $10 billion in app store revenue, by virtue of the policies that they had in place. So they're definitely not going to take this one laying down, especially whenever that's with 100% growth between 2020 and 2024. So it's been pretty explosive up and to the right for them. So it's a huge hit to potentially take that away. Tony V, want to hear from you next. What's your take on how this might change, Web3 gaming and the way that we're looking at the App Store?
Yeah, I think it's a huge deal. 10 out of 10, whatever the metric is for this one. Bullish as fuck. And I think not just because of the obvious financial upside that everyone called out here. I hate agreeing with Jerry, but he's right on this one. I also think that the amount of innovation and new applications, like what people are going to do with the App Store, is going to change pretty intrinsically. I think about like what crossplay meant for games like Rocket League, or even genres like battle royale, right? Like PUBG Mobile is just like a huge thing that didn't exist before crossplay, and so and I don't know, I'm old, and I think Koji's old, and Sinjin's old, so like we all remember when crossplay wasn't a thing, and then like one day it just was, and this feels like that kind of moment where like this wasn't a thing and now it is, and so things like what Koji called out, where big, not just big retailers like Amazon, but people that are wanting to distribute online services more broadly are going to now have the App Store as a distribution platform to do that and still be able to manage like an online storefront. I think that as we move, you guys hear me talk all the time about the creator economy. As we move further and further from needing truck drivers and farmers, the more easily that people are able to monetize their online experiences, the better off we're going to be.
Let's go to Lems next. Lems, any additional context? And also, give me your MVP as we start to arrive towards the end of the show here.
Bullish, yeah, 10 if we're throwing sentiment score in here too. I just wanted to also be like, man, like GG Tim Sweeney, like Apple had a stranglehold on this for years. Even like Google Play, even though they were like a lower rating, they're like 20 as opposed to like Apple's 27, 30%. But man, like they had such a stranglehold for so long, and it was finally someone who was well capitalized to like push back and fight them. And like he did the same thing with the Unity runtime fee. I mean, there was probably a little bit of like self-interest and bias there because they have Unreal Engine, but like at least he was like also kind of fighting the good fight of like, hey, let's not fuck over the small players. And like as we talked about earlier, like margins are tight, and let people actually like build games and monetize them and not just get shafted at every step of the way. And MVP goes to Jerry today, running through the rain to be on Gamified and actually, bringing some good takes to the panel and, picking fights. That's good job, Jerry.
Shout out to big Timmy Sweens. Let's go over to Kevin Lambert. Who's your MVP? And give us the rest of your take here. Let's go to Knock instead.
Yeah, this is an 11, 12 out of 10 for a couple of reasons, most of which has already been covered by the panel. But I want to touch on something that nobody really mentioned. This was a lawsuit that took place entirely in the United States through California district courts. Historically, when Apple concedes to something, it comes through legislation that the EU Commission files, and then it has downstream effects on a lot of the other things. So one of the things that we mentioned is like placement within the App Store, teams that are willing to pay a little more, some way that Apple can figure this out. Well, they actually had a lawsuit in Europe about this for sort of suppressing competitors like Spotify and a couple of the other streaming services in favor of Apple Music. They stopped people from pushing particular ads or promotions or better placement within the store, and they lost that lawsuit in Europe, and they had to change that, and that is changed in the United States as well. The reason why none of our phones, if you have a relatively new iPhone within the last 3 or 4 years, has that stupid lightning port anymore is also because of an EU court ruling, and they didn't find a way around that. Apple used to license the tech for that port that allowed people to make third-party, chargers and charging bricks and special cases and things of that nature, and it was a big moneymaker for them, and they lost that ruling in the EU court circuit as well, and that's why most Apple devices, if you've purchased something in the last few years, uses USB-C instead of Lightning. So I think that this is actually really important because they have a history of pushing the envelope when it comes to borderline anti-competitive behavior. They have a history of taking these things to court in places like Europe, losing the court cases, and then having massive downstream effects the way that their products and ecosystem work forever afterwards. And I'm hopeful that because this was fought in the United States, this is a step in the right direction because most of the time people have been afraid to take them to court there. So they get this ruling in California district courts. Even if it gets appealed and they go back to court here, you have to look at this as an absolute massive positive. And if the percentages do change, to Sinjin's point, it's very unlikely that you start seeing preferential placement for people who pay more or people that Apple want to be in preferred spots because they've already lost lawsuits specifically about that thing. I think this has massive implications. I think Tim Sweeney taking this stand at the peak of Fortnite, when Fortnite literally had everything to lose by taking a giant like Apple to court, a battle that they've been fighting for like 5 to 7 years. It is a massive move from a company who had everything in the world to lose. And hopefully this continues to stand, because this will have big, long-standing changes for the Apple ecosystem and downstream potentially even the Google Play Store.
And your MVP is?
I will also give it to Jerry. I know that this is like blasphemy, and Dub just left the table. I will also give it to Jerry because I do think that he, despite two insane takes about F1, delivered every time today.
Kevin Lambert, are you with us, brother?
I will speak for Kevin.
Yes.
And okay.
I'm sorry. Can you go one more time? I had a connection lapse.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, go for it. So you had your hand back up on still Epic v Apple. Not sure if you wanted to chime in there, and then also asking for your MVP.
Yes. I wanted to riff on, I think it was Jerry, no, it was Sinjin. One of you guys was talking about how it's likely that I think it was Jerry. Apple's gonna come around and hit us in other ways. I think you said the same thing, Sam. Like, I feel like the ways that we're going to see that realistically is that there's going to be different fees. It's just like, hey, if you want to use external payments, there's a new I said tariff. There's a new fee on external payments, or they could also hit you on advertising costs. They could raise those, and like even like just hitting everyone with a big middle finger by saying like now we're gonna have developer program fees, which we didn't have before. Like there are so many ways that they could recoup those costs, and I, like you guys, totally expect them to investigate some of those. And yeah, so MVP. I'm gonna give it to Knock because 3 times this episode he answered before me and just took the wind out of my sails with exactly what I was gonna say. So I don't know. It's some combination of great minds think alike, and I have to get my hand up before him in the future.
Wow, Knock. He voted for you, but he was really saying it was a vote for himself. That was very dub of him.
Very dub of him. Powerful statement. Will Spangler, who's your pick for MVP, brother?
I mean, it's got to be Sinjin. I feel like, everyone else has got good takes, but Sinjin gets me immersed in the story behind the take and the rationale that really wins me over more than these facts and statistics. So, yeah, go on to the big man.
When you opened that, it kind of sounded like it was going to be an insult. It was like, everyone's got good takes, but Sinjin, like...
Sinjin, you fucking beauty. Who's your pick for MVP today, brother?
Last week I got the MVP because Knock and Kevin and Paul were not there, so it was like kind of unfair. But great takes from everyone today. Very solid. Daryl and Vo were on. Vo was on as well, and that was great as well. I think Knock obviously had some fantastic takes today, as he does always. But I got to give it to Jerry. His humor and his comedic timing is just so fucking fantastic. It brings so much to the space. Although I would say like 50% of what he says sometimes is like absolute garbage, but like the other 50% is like, oh, it's fucking awesome. And but the comedic takes are always fucking on point. Even the baseball, whatever takes and stuff like that. So, but all my love for Jerry, I think he's a great presence in Web3, and he does bring in the marketing takes, and great job today, Jerry.
Jerry needs to get caught in a thunderstorm before every episode of Gamified to wake him up, lock him in. Jerry, who's your MVP?
Yeah, I'm not kidding. I actually did have to run home during that, so I was very quiet for the first 5 minutes, and then quiet for the next 5 minutes after that. I fucking died on my living room floor. It's gonna be Knock, because Knock, and I appreciate the kind words, Sinjin. You're my runner up. Um, Knock in a sea of delusion. Knock is also sometimes delusional, and also sometimes has IBS verbally, but a lot of the time he's really level headed, and you know, he always sees the forest through the trees, or whatever that fucking dumb saying is. So
Amazing. Let's go over next to Koji. Koji, who's your pick for MVP?
My pick for MVP this week, just to prove to Jerry that people want new things, is I'm gonna let Jerry win MVP. So yeah, congratulations, Jerry. You got my MVP vote. I hate it here.
Koji proving that home field advantage doesn't work on spaces by getting 0 MVP votes. Daryl, who's your pick of the day?
that was awesome.
Yeah, I feel like great takes all around today. My MVP, I think it has to be Koji. I feel like Koji had great takes, and also is the MVP for hosting everyone. Sounds like I'm sad to miss it, but I feel like that's as strong of a case for MVP as you can make.
Daryl, clearly the empath among us, couldn't let me relish in that sweet burn. But I appreciate you, Daryl. Let's go, Tony. Tony, who's your MVP of the day, brother? Oh, Tony's not on the panel anymore, fighting for his life in the Twitter depths of hell. If I could do math real quick, 1, 2, 3. Jerry's the MVP winner with 4 votes. Congratulations, the Jer Bear. 40 seconds of FaceTime. I don't know why I said 40. 60 seconds of FaceTime over to Jerry. Whatever you want to plug, brother.
Oh, I just want to talk about how I was right about Riot and Coinbase. It's fucking not that important. Ice Frog does balance the fuck out of Dota. I don't know what Simpson's talking about when he says he doesn't do that. Who else disagreed with me on things?
Another garbage. I
I
take
don't
away
know.
my MVP.
I don't, I don't have shit to plug. Fucking, what is this, Sam? 8 times? 7 times? I don't know, Sam. They don't ask how, they ask how many.
If you got to ring every MVP vote, you'd be hard pressed to close those knuckles, brother. But Avalanche, by the way, similar situation here. The official chain of Gamified is more than just a blockchain. It's a winter wonderland of innovation with a $100 million AI fund and partnerships with gaming giants like Gunzilla Games, T1 Esports, and Solo Leveling. Avalanche is breaking the ice and setting the standard for the future of Web3 gaming at their London Summit starting May 20th. That's next week. I'll be in London. Where are you? So whether you're a seasoned pro or a curious newbie, come explore the Avalanche of possibilities and discover a world where the snow never melts and the fun never stops. And I'm calling all cosmic crusaders and spacefaring scoundrels. Star Atlas is about to ignite the gaming galaxy with its pulse-pounding space races, where velocity and valor are your keys to victory. Master the maneuvers of magnificent spaceships, mine marvelous minerals, and build an empire that spans the stars. Join the Discord, get a game key, and play the preseason to prepare for a year of stellar surprises in 2025. And get ready to rumble with the gaming gatekeepers who are flipping the script. They're the ones that are turning the metaverse into the melting pot of ideas, a crucible of creativity, and a breeding ground for innovation. They're the ones empowering players to take control of their digital destinies. So grab your gamepads and get ready to conquer the next era of gaming with Game 7, the official infrastructure of Gamified. And of course, our incredible panelist, Daryl from B3, absolutely crushed it again. Jerry smashing it out of the park, winning another MVP. Go listen to Jerry's show, by the way, actually multiple shows per week on the Arena. Lems, my co-host with the most.
Tuesday and Friday.
Tuesday and Friday. What time is it again, Jerry?
10 on Tuesdays, PST, and noon on Fridays. Thanks for the plug. I forgot about that.
Yeah, there you go. That's you got to use that FaceTime, bro. You gotta not just pump your baseball references. Gotta actually plug something for once. Koji from Parallel Sanctuary, Wayfinder, and Colony, and also a record store that I'm pretty sure he works part time at here in Toronto. Kevin Lambert from Project O, Knock from Magic Eden, Sinjin from Meiji, Spang, big Spangler from Avax. Love all you guys, and Peyton behind the Wolves Dow account today. Appreciate each and every one of you. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Except for it'll be like 10 or 11 p.m. for me instead. Appreciate you guys tuning in live from London, and big smooches. We'll see you there.